incursion into Gaza. Like a 21st century equivalent of World War I trenches, these deep burrows have dugouts for storing weapons and safe rooms for fighters to plan and gather. Small trapdoors in the desert let militants evade advancing troops, even sneak up behind them. And the danger down here, not just to the troops above, but to Israeli civilians too. Long-range rockets stored on wall brackets can be rushed forward to be fired towards Tel Aviv and other cities from hidden gun pits connected directly to the tunnels, making the launch sites even harder for the IDF to strike back at. Only after an incursion can Israel expect to fully destroy the terror tunnels. Absent that, the so-called Gaza Metro will outfox and endanger Israeli soldiers and civilians alike. Some of these very heavy detonations that we hear from here that you can actually feel sometimes, Anderson, I think these are intended to try to penetrate deep down and take out some of those tunnels. But after the 2014 incursion, the IDF went in and they used bulldozers to get rid of the tunnels. So that really shows you, even with the really heavy munitions, they're not going to be able to eradicate all these threats that the troops are going to face when they get in there. And that is, of course, something that plays heavily on the minds of those soldiers, knowing that militant Hamas terrorists can pop up behind them when they think they've already cleared a house or a field. Anderson?
Nick Robertson, thanks. I want to get some perspective on the challenges those tunnels might present for the IDF should it choose to embark on a ground incursion. Back with us now is retired Army Colonel Peter Mansour. He's a former top aide to General David Petraeus, currently professor of military history at Ohio State University. So, I mean, it's fascinating to see these tunnels, both in IDF video that they put out and also Hamas propaganda video. Can you just talk about the challenges of dealing with a network like that? How do you destroy them? How do you fight in them?
Well, preferably you don't fight in them. In World War II on Iwo Jima, for instance, the Japanese had an extensive tunnel network. The Marines would simply find the entrances and close them off, whether with explosives or bulldozers or flamethrowers, and they would entomb the Japanese inside. In Gaza, this is a problem, though, because inside those tunnels, there may be some of those hostages that Hamas has taken. And, of course, you want to free them. But fighting inside tunnels is slow, dirty work, claustrophobic, and very, very dangerous, and it advantages the defender. So I don't think the Israeli Defense Forces really want to get into a close knockdown, drag-out fight inside those tunnels.
Even mapping or gathering information about the tunnels it must be extremely difficult.
Yes, you might be able to, with persistent surveillance, find the entrances and exits, but where the tunnels lead, how they snake around underground, almost impossible to tell from overhead reconnaissance. The Israelis, as they advance forward with their ground offensive, are going to have to leave troops in the rear to secure their rear areas. They can't assume that once they've cleared a building, for instance, that there aren't hatches through which the militants can come up from the ground behind them.
And in a dense urban environment like Gaza, with obviously now lots of debris around, I know they have bulldozers as well, but how vulnerable are, APCs, tanks in urban combat?
Well, it's a misnomer that urban combat is just infantry combat. The best force to use in urban combat is a combined arms team that has tanks, that has infantry fighting vehicles, but they need to be protected on the ground by dismounted infantry and overhead by air defense and Air Force assets. So the combined arms team rules the modern battlefield, and that's as true in the urban environment as it is in the open desert.
And how do you think this conflict, I mean, we've talked, you and I have talked about, about Mosul, about the U.S. experience there, Iraqi forces experiences there. How big, or Fallujah, Were the civilian populations pretty much cleared out of both of those places?
In Fallujah, yes. The U.S. forces and Iraqi forces surrounded Fallujah, gave them several weeks to clear out before they went in. So that was a fairly clean battlefield, if you will. Mosul still had some civilians, although far fewer than are in Gaza. And there were civilian casualties in that fighting, but the way that the U.S. and Iraqi forces went about clearing Mosul reduced those casualties using special forces and targeted airstrikes. If you go in with a big, heavy ground invasion, as the Israelis might be planning, then there's going to be a lot of death and destruction in the path of the advance. And if civilians are in those buildings as they're assaulted, a lot of them are going to die.
And so is that the idea of more limited incursion with special forces, is that something you would recommend in a situation given the number of hostages and the civilian population still there?
Well, there's a Marine three-star general in Israel right now who's probably recommending that course of action to the Israeli Defense Forces to do it the way we did it in Mosul. But there's a drawback to that. It takes longer. And there's a calculation that the Israeli government needs to make. How long is the world community going to give them once they go in with ground forces? Can they afford a several-month-long battle versus something that will be quicker but more deadly?
Colonel Peter Mansour, thank you. Appreciate it. Coming up, 4 hostages that we know of released now. More than 200 remain. My next guest says this is a crisis unlike any other that he's seen as a hostage negotiator here in Israel. He's Gershon Baskin, who helped part of the negotiations in the 2011 release of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, although that took years and years of negotiations. He's been talking to senior Hamas officials since the October 7th attack. His insights next.
They said you can't create an app without coding. We said, why not? Today, over 10 million businesses have created apps using AppyPie's no-code platform. So you start to wonder, can I do even more without code? Like, can I create fully customizable apps, automate workflow? The answer is yes, because we are leveraging the power of AI so you can achieve exponentially more. Create AI-powered apps without coding. Visit AppyPie now.
When I was diagnosed with HIV, I didn't know who I would be.
But here I am.
Being me.
Keep being you and ask your healthcare provider about the #1 prescribed HIV treatment, Biktarvy.
Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in many people, whether you're 18 or 80. With one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV to help you get to undetectable and stay there, whether you're just starting or replacing your current treatment. Research shows that taking HIV treatment as prescribed and getting to and staying undetectable prevents transmitting HIV through sex. Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare, life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Do not take Biktarvy if you take tofetilide or rifampin. Tell your healthcare provider about all the medicines and supplements you take if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, or if you have kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Biktarvy without talking to your healthcare provider. Common side effects are diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
No matter where life takes you, Biktarvy can go with you. Talk to your healthcare provider today.
Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 10 on CNN.
We're both grateful and humbled by the generosity of the ALS Society of BC and the provincial government who provided the resources to allow UBC to recruit someone with the international stature of Professor Pioro. I'm honored to take the lead for Project Hope. We will work diligently to create opportunities for persons living with ALS to have access to clinical trials. Our goal for ALS research at UBC is to become a leader.
On behalf of people living with ALS in BC, thank you.
1 in 3 children is now at risk of going to school on an empty stomach.
When I'm hungry, my stomach starts to hurt a little bit. It's hard to think and concentrate. I don't have enough energy.
But there's hope. By supporting Toonies for Tummies, 100% of your donation gives hungry children in your community the chance to start their day with a much-needed nutritious meal.
When I eat breakfast, I have lots of energy. When it's gym, I can run really fast.
Donate online today.
Join Poppy and Phil on CNN This Morning, tomorrow at 6 Eastern.
Well, Qatar, one of the nations involved behind the scenes in negotiations to release hostages held by Hamas, says it's hopeful for a breakthrough, quote, soon. As you know, 4 hostages have been released, more than 200 remain. The United States has pressed Israel to delay a ground operation inside Gaza while negotiations are ongoing. Sources tell CNN they don't believe the Israelis will hold off for very long. My next guest, Gershon Baskin, helped negotiate the release of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, who was finally released in 2011. That effort for one soldier took more than 5 years, and the release of more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, including the current leader of Hamas in Gaza. Now, Gershon Baskin says in an op-ed in the New York Times that this crisis is unlike any other, and that, quote, none of the old rules apply. Gershon Baskin has also been speaking to his contacts with Hamas since the October 7th attack, and I talked to him earlier.
So, Gershon, first of all, where do you think we are in these negotiations behind the scenes?
I have been in touch with people in Hamas, in people in Qatar, with people in Egypt, and no one will confirm what is holding up the agreement right now. Israel has intensified the bombings in Gaza this evening, which is unbelievable with the human suffering that's going on there, and no one seems to be in a rush to get this done.
In the deal to release Gilad Shalit, as you well know, more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners were released, one of whom is leading Hamas right now. At the time, did you have a sense that could happen? Do you regret making that deal? I know this is personal for you as well.
It is personal for me because 4 of the people who were released in that deal killed my wife's first cousin a year before Gilad Shalit was abducted. So it really is personal. Yahya Sinwar, the man who was leading Gaza, was serving 22 years.
So the people who you were involved in, negotiating with, some of the prisoners who were going to be released, they had killed a member of your own family, of your wife's family.
Well, I didn't have anything to do with selecting the list of prisoners, and in the end, I was not a decision maker. Prime Minister Netanyahu and 26 ministers of his government voted for this deal. The whole national security establishment supported the deal. What I thought, what David Meidan, the person from the Mossad that I was working under, believed was that once an Israeli soldier was no longer in Gaza, the reality on the ground would change and we could open up the siege. We could gradually work out some kind of modus vivendi with Hamas that would enable people to have a chance of a better life, that the whole entire Palestinian question could be addressed seriously. But Mr. Netanyahu had a completely different strategy, was keeping Hamas in power and a delegitimized Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, because he never wanted to deal with the Palestinian issue. In this way, you could say there's no one to talk to, we have no partner, is the slogan that was used by Netanyahu all of these years. Who do you want us to negotiate with? Sinwar, who's leading Gaza, was arrested by Israel and served 22 years of a life sentence for killing Palestinians. He never killed an Israeli before. He killed collaborators with Israel. This is the man walking by on the screen. Israel operated on him. He had brain cancer. And Israel took care of his brain cancer, did surgery on him, and saved his life from cancer. And this is the man who's leading Gaza today.
So do you believe deals should be made? Because there are those who take a hard line and say there should be no negotiations over hostages, which is obviously a very, an emotionally, and it's an impossible choice.
Right. If there was a chance of a military operation that could rescue the hostages, if this was 1974 and Entebbe, and the Israelis could sweep in and save everyone and lose one soldier who was the brother of Mr. Netanyahu, that would be amazing. But that's not the reality here. If we send in military ops special forces, we're going to lose soldiers, and probably a large number of the hostages are going to be killed as well.
Just finally, do you think it's possible to have a situation where the elderly, the wounded, babies, all the civilians are released as a sign of good faith, if you will, from Hamas, or you can call it whatever you want? Is it possible that all the civilians might be released, and then there's a longer negotiation over soldiers?
Right, I think that there's a very good chance, still, while the window is open before the ground incursion begins, that there is a negotiated agreement for the release of the civilians, the women, the children, the elderly, and the sick. The wounded, this is definitely a possibility. Hamas has not demanded, to the best of my knowledge, a prisoner release from Israel for that. They want a ceasefire. They want the bombing of Gaza to end. They believe that the ceasefire will be held by Israel because they will be holding on to the Israeli soldiers, and that's their belief of a guarantee that Israel won't continue the war. I don't believe that's the case. I think that once the civilian hostages are released, that Israel will have a green light to go in and try to rescue the other hostages as part of its main military directive, which is to remove Hamas's capability from governing and threatening Israel. So I think Hamas is taking a big risk. Israel could agree to a ceasefire and then break that agreement for a ceasefire, knowing the risks that are being taken. Hamas could kill the hostages. They acted like ISIS inside of Israel. They can act like ISIS inside of Gaza as well. And this is a danger. This is a real risk. But I think that the primary Israeli directive is to remove Hamas's ability to govern and threaten Israel any longer, even at the risk of sacrificing hostages.
You believe that?
I think that's the reality of Israel today. That could change, but that is certainly the mood of the country, even though the voices of the families of the hostage are growing stronger. Today, for instance, for the first time in 17 days, I think we're now in the war, the military spokesperson said that the primary objective is not only to remove Hamas, but also to bring the hostages home. This was the first day when it said that this is the primary objective. So they've now combined the two objectives as being primary. It's going to be very difficult. But the first thing that we need to do is get out everyone that Hamas is willing to get out in exchange for a ceasefire, in exchange for whatever issue they're haggling over that's slowing the process down. We need to get it done quickly.
Gershon Baskin, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
I want to bring you a breaking situation right now back in the United States. Police investigating what local law enforcement in Maine, in Lewiston, Maine, say are calling two active shooter events. Lewiston, as you can see, is just northeast of Portland. I want to go to CNN's Athena Jones, who has the latest on the situation there. Athena, what's going on?
Well, Anderson, these reports are coming in slowly. More details we're getting by the minute. In fact, another shooting, a third location, shooting at a third location, a Walmart distribution center, appears to also be under investigation. That's according to the Sun Journal newspaper. But Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office has released a photograph of the suspect that I believe we can put up on the screen. They're calling for folks in two neighboring cities, Lewiston, Maine, and Auburn, Maine, to shelter in place after reports of shootings that they're being investigated at multiple locations, telling residents, please stay inside your home with the doors locked. Law enforcement is currently investigating at multiple locations. Lewiston City Councilor Robert McCarthy is telling CNN that schools are currently in lockdown. You may ask, why would schools need to be in lockdown at this hour of the night? Well, apparently there have been activities going on at those locations. So these events are still unfolding, but you can see there a man who appears to have some sort of long gun. We don't know what kind of gun that is, and they are investigating these events occurring at multiple locations. The Sun newspaper reporting.
Athena, let me just ask. Let me go ahead, Athena.
I was going to say the Sun newspaper reporting that the first two locations being investigated, one, Spare Time Recreation, it seems like a recreation center there in Lewiston, and then also Schmenge's Bar and Grill Restaurant on another street in Lewiston. We don't yet have a map, but we know that Lewiston is a relatively small city, a population of about 36,000, about 40 miles north of Portland, Maine. And authorities in next door Auburn, which is about 2 miles away from Lewiston, are also asking residents to shelter in place as this investigation unfolds. But still, a lot of details that were still waiting to come in.
Yeah, still getting around to gather it. I want to bring in CNN security correspondent Josh Campbell. Josh, as we look at this image, normally we don't put up images of active shooters. But given that this is an ongoing situation, police are obviously wanting any information about this person. It's believed this person is still active. What stands out to you at this time?
Well, you're absolutely right, Anderson. This is essentially the only time that we like to publicize the shooter when police are actively trying to find this person. They are appealing to the public. If you see this person, to call 911. And looking at that imagery right there, what you see is a high-powered assault-style rifle. And as we zoom in there, center in, you can see there's a long magazine. What that means is that this is a lot of firepower, a lot of ammunition that someone can fire in a short period of time. The individual appears to be wearing cargo pants there. We've seen in past incidents they bring additional magazines to these shooting situations, which just means that they are able to fire on a lot of people, which is why we're seeing now these reports of different incidents. Obviously, for police right now, they've been sending out these orders, as Athena was just mentioning, shelter-in-place orders, because we believe that this individual has gone to these multiple locations. Just because there are multiple locations don't necessarily mean there are multiple shooters. It appears this person is on the move, and authorities are trying to find this person. We do know that there were a host of law enforcement from multiple agencies that are fusing together. These are different jurisdictions that they're warning residents to be on the lookout. When that happens, the boundaries go away. Police will fuse together. Again, their goal is public safety and preservation of life and trying to find this individual. And they are essentially following these reports, mapping it out, as you will. Where can this person be going? One thing that's interesting at this time of day, obviously we're far, it's too soon to know about what the motive is, but at this time of day, if you have someone who's an intent on causing mass loss of life, it would be these kinds of locations: a recreation center, a distribution center, where you would presumably have lots of personnel. So a very dangerous situation. Authorities again are issuing that shelter in place to try to keep people off the streets.
Josh, how unusual is it? I mean, obviously, look, the FBI has done studies on every active shooting situation and compile statistics. We know most of the fatalities in active shooting situations occur within the first minutes of an incident. But the fact that they are looking at multiple locations, 3 possible locations, and again, we don't at this point know the distance between those locations, if this individual got into a vehicle or if these are all within a short walking distance. But the fact that there are multiple locations already, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that this is an individual, obviously, who is searching for targets. It appears that way, going to places that are populated. One thing that's always important, I mean, we're not talking about a major metropolitan area like New York City or Los Angeles. It takes time for law enforcement to respond, particularly in a smaller jurisdiction where they may not have a large component of police on a particular shift. So they have to call in additional officers. They have to call in what's called mutual aid, sending word out to other agencies, federal, state, local, to bring that in. That takes time. And a somewhat remote area like this, it's not a large metropolitan area, that provides the shooter time to move to different locations. Obviously, now that they're flooding the zone with authorities, they're hoping that either this person, may go to ground. Obviously, they want to prevent the additional loss of life, but you'll have additional police assets out there. If someone does call 911 and says, we see this individual, they can quickly vector those police to that location. The final thing I'll say is that this is also the critical time as they're treating patients. They're also looking for witnesses, interviewing people at every one of those scenes, trying to figure out, who this person is. Do you recognize this individual? Obviously, this is the snapshot in time that we're seeing what the person was wearing at that moment, but people can easily, change their clothes, and so the description may change over time depending on what additional witnesses say. All critical pieces of information as this manhunt continues.
Also, Josh, I mean, there's a lot we don't know. Do we know the time that the first police report came in, or do we know what the time the police first alerted the public about this, just to get a sense of how long this individual has been out there with a gun operating?
We don't, and obviously we've been trying to reach out to law enforcement. They have their hands full right now. Obviously, they're putting this image out there, but you have a lot of officers who, especially particularly in smaller jurisdictions, they might not have a full-time person who deals with public engagement in the media. And so again, all of those officers are focused on this manhunt. We do know as these reports have come in, we've been listening and seeing what officers have been saying. We're not talking about an extended period of time, but we are seeing time and again these reports come in of a new incident, and then after those reports come, they'll put that information out. We'll obviously report it, and again, their sense they're trying to figure out if anyone knows who this person is or the location where they might be. They obviously want the people to call law enforcement very quickly. We don't have a specific timeline, but we're not talking about hours going by. This is all happening in quick succession.
Josh Campbell, Athena Jones, thank you. We're going to keep on this throughout the hour. Just ahead, the Gaza hospital crisis, the flood of casualties, many of them children. Clarissa Ward joins us with her report next.
Start your day with Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist-recommended vitamin and supplement brand.
This is a hot flash. This is a hot flash. But this is a not flash. There's big news for women going through menopause. Veoza, a prescription treatment for moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms, the medical name for hot flashes and night sweats. With hormone-free Veoza, you can have fewer hot flashes and more not flashes. Veoza is proven to reduce the number and severity of hot flashes day and night. For some women, it can start working in as early as 1 week. Don't use Veoza if you have cirrhosis, severe kidney problems, kidney failure, or take CYP1A2 inhibitors. Increased liver blood test values may occur. Your doctor will check them before and during treatment. Most common side effects include stomach pain, diarrhea, difficulty sleeping, back pain, and hot flashes. Ask your doctor about hormone-free Veoza and enjoy more not flashes.
Our mission here at CNN is that the news comes first. That's the promise of the Situation Room. We work as hard as we can to get the facts.
The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, tomorrow at 6 on CNN.
I have a structured settlement and I need cash now. Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
I have an annuity, but I need cash now.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
Hey, Emma.
We need a mattress, right?
Yeah.
Been doing a little research.
Little?
The Safa Classic has 2 layers of springs that contour to your body.
Nice, but...
It has a 3-inch Euro pillow top, Dan.
Oh,
and it's half the price of retail.
But I just wanted to know about dinner.
Look at this premium quality, and it's half the price of retail stores. I'm MJ Lee at the White House, and this is CNN.
The source tells CNN one of the major roadblocks in hostage negotiations that we mentioned a moment ago is the issue of fuel. Israel refusing to let into Gaza. Officials here say that Hamas will use it to carry out more attacks. UN officials say fuel is needed to operate, among other much-needed services, hospitals. Clarissa Ward has more on that. We want to warn you some of the images you'll see are graphic.
Every morning they gather outside the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. Family members bidding farewell to their loved ones who did not survive the night. A ritual that tragically has become all too familiar in Gaza. Women and children, these are the targets, this man laments. This is Hamas. Hours earlier, the chaotic moments as the dead and injured were brought into the hospital during the most intense night of bombardment in the last 17 days. And, as with every night, so many of the victims' children. Dr. Mohammed Rayan says the ER has struggled to keep up with the flood of casualties, and the severity of the injuries that they are dealing with, particularly third-degree burns. The hospital is not prepared to deal with these types of burns, and I don't suppose the bigger hospitals will be able to either, he says. We're suffering from a lack of essentials due to the siege. Even as we speak now, at any moment the electricity could cut off. The World Health Organization has warned that 12 of Gaza's 35 hospitals are no longer functioning, and that number is about to get higher unless desperately needed fuel arrives. Left to fend for themselves with no place to go. They watch and wait for help that has yet to come.
Clarissa joins me now. There was concern that Gaza would run out of fuel tonight. Do we know what the status of that is? Are hospitals going dark?
Well, we haven't actually been able to get in touch with any of the hospitals tonight. We have spoken to the UN agency that operates inside of Gaza, and they had warned yesterday that they were about to run out of fuel. Now they're saying if they don't get more fuel tonight or tomorrow, that they will be forced to suspend operations. You remember, Anderson, we spoke to that doctor at the Shifa hospital on Monday. He said 2 days worth of fuel left. I have tried to message him several times. We have not yet heard back from him. We will be contacting him again in the morning. But it is very clear that we are talking about the very last drops of fuel at the moment, Anderson. And with every moment that goes by, there is the risk that those generators will no longer be able to function. Ventilators, incubators, desalination plants, all of them will come to a grinding halt unless the international community can come together and find some consensus on this issue soon, Anderson.
Yeah. Professor Ward, thank you for that report. Next, what Israel's prime minister said today in his address to the nation about the intelligence and military failures on October 7th. A lot of people want to see him take responsibility. We'll have more ahead.
Car Gurus. Shop, buy, sell online.
Just always thought dog food is dog food. Didn't really piece together that dogs eat food. As soon as we brought the farmer's dog in, her skin was better, she was more active. If I can invest in her health and be proactive, I think it's worth it.
Visit betterforthem.com.
You want to see a trick?
Sure.
I can make anything you want appear on that TV.
Superheroes.
Superheroes.
Well, cute animals.
Cute animals.
Wizards.
Wizards. Would you like my trick?
I saw the remote.
With you, keeping the whole family entertained. Search endless content with the magical Ignite TV voice remote. Rogers, with you all the way.
They put food on our tables, care for our loved ones, and help build our communities. Canada needs over 400,000 migrant workers to fill employment gaps and sustain our growing economy. Mosaic BC's Migrant Workers Program provides support services to migrant workers, but more needs to be done. Like many others, migrant workers also lost their jobs during the BC wildfires. Emergency funding is required to support worker needs. Help give back to these workers who give so much to Canada. Donate today at mosaicbc.org.
I'm Pete Montine at Reagan National Airport. This is CNN.
As we mentioned earlier, Israel's prime minister gave a televised address to the nation in which he said that Israeli forces are preparing for ground invasion of Gaza. He also talked about investigating the Israeli failures on October 7th. Michael Oren, the former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., joins me. I want to ask you about something that Netanyahu said today. He said this failure will be investigated thoroughly, meaning the intelligence failures, the military failures, on October 7th. Everyone will need to provide answers, myself included, but all this will happen only after the war. There's a lot of Israelis I've talked to who feel that he should, at the very least, accept some responsibility, which intelligence chiefs have, military chiefs have as well. He has not.
We have this internal security, our FBI accepted responsibility. That's sort of an Israeli tradition, by the way, accepting responsibility. I don't know how many Americans resigned after 9/11, or even how many Americans resigned after Pearl Harbor, but here it doesn't work like that. After 2006, you remember, because you were here during the Second Lebanon War,
The chief of staff resigned. Basically, the prime minister resigned. The defense minister resigned because they felt that the war didn't go well. That war was going a heck of a lot better than this war is going.
Does the doubt about Netanyahu among many here, does it make this ground operation more difficult? Does it weaken the military?
It weakens our resilience, and I'll explain. You know, everybody knows who the commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces is. It's the President of the United States. He asked a good trivial question: who is the commander-in-chief of the Israeli Defense Forces? A lot of Israelis don't even know the answer. It's not the chief of staff. It's not the defense minister. It's not the prime minister. It's the government. The whole government is the commander-in-chief. Because this country fights on the basis of consensus. And if there's any question about the government's legitimacy, it's willing to take responsibility, it'll impact the entire system. And this is why you're hearing from Israelis that they think that the prime minister should accept responsibility. What they're really saying is either he should step down, or he should say, I will accept responsibility, which is code in Israel for after this, I will step down. And that's what we understand when the chief of staff took responsibility. He says, okay, I'm going to fight this war, but after this, I'm leaving. And
so what do you know, people have been using the word imminent for this ground operation now for 3 weeks. Yeah. I'm not sure how much longer people can use that word. What do you think is going on, and how long can it be delayed?
Well, what's going on is they're saying there's tactical and strategic reasons. Maybe the forces aren't up in terms of training. You just can't take people out of their civilian life who maybe did a reserve duty 3 years ago and then throw them into combat. They have
particularly this kind of combat, urban, street to street.
They have to have the right equipment. Not everyone had the right equipment. The Air Force wants to flatten certain areas of the combat so that the troops can move and the tanks can move without going through a dense urban environment. I mean, look at the city behind us. Would you want to go in there and fight in that city? You want a flat surface. And to do that, you have to get the civilians out. And that's taking a long time to get the Palestinian civilians out. So that's what's delaying it. I'm sure the United States is saying to the Netanyahu government, saying, you know, give us a little more time to get more hostages out. So there's another factor in there.
Humanitarian supplies.
And there's a lot of clocks going on here. But here the clock's moving the other direction. The other directions are, A, you have 360,000 reservists called up. You know, that's like more reservists than the entire American military. That's the size of the army that moved into Iraq in 2003. That's very lot of trouble.
You can't keep an army of 360,000 reservists indefinitely on that position.
Not just that. Who are the reservists? These are people. These are women and men in their 20s and 30s who are the backbone of this economy. Most of them are married. Most of them have kids. They've been away from their houses for 3 weeks. There's a morale issue. You just can't keep them sort of hanging out for 3 weeks. And they get fired up at first, and then maybe they're not going to be so fired up when they're sitting out there for 3 weeks.
The hostage families say the number one priority should be getting the hostages back. What Netanyahu said today is, and I'm not sure if this is a slight change of language, but essentially that, you know, destroying Hamas and as much as possible getting the hostages back. Are those the same?
They're going to have to be, unfortunately. Why? Because I'm going to tell you as candidly as I can, Israel can't accept a ceasefire. Ceasefire means Hamas wins. Ceasefire would be like, you know, after Pearl Harbor, America saying, okay, we're going to have a ceasefire because the Japanese have a lot of prisoners. Or after 9/11, 12th of September, saying we're going to have a ceasefire, we're going to somehow negotiate. It's impossible. With a ceasefire, if Hamas wins, that means Hamas gets away with murdering, butchering 1,400 of our citizens. Security is not returned to this country. We have next to no deterrence power. We have a very, very tough neighborhood. Who's going to be afraid of us?
Michael Oren, thank you.
Always.
Thank you. CNN's coverage in Israel continues. The Source of Caitlin Collins starts now.
Welcome to The Source. We start with breaking news tonight because what we are monitoring as we come on the air right now are 2 active shooter events that have happened in Lewiston, Maine, and a 3rd possible shooting location. We're still gathering more details tonight, but what we have heard from the sheriff's office there is they released this image of a suspect who is still at large. They are encouraging all of the local businesses to close their doors, to lock down, and for people to stay inside their homes as they are continuing to investigate and search for this shooter. I want to go straight to CNN's Athena Jones, who is covering this story. Athena, what is the latest we know about these separate locations that we are hearing about from authorities.
Right. Well, we do know that this all began to unfold just after 7 p.m. I listened to the scanner just now. The authorities talking about multiple people down at least 2 locations. You can see them there. Schmetty's Bar and Grill and Spare Time Recreation. That's a bowling alley. Those are the first 2 locations that authorities have been investigating shootings at. And we just learned from the Sun Journal newspaper in Maine that a 3rd location, that Walmart distribution center, may also be the site of another shooting. You see there the suspect who is still at large. The Sheriff's Department, Androscoggin County Sheriff's Department, is calling on people to, and the state police are calling on people to shelter in place both in Lewiston and in the nearby town of Auburn. That's a town about 2 miles away. You can see that the stretch of area there in Maine. These are relatively small towns, but there's still a lot more information we need to gather on this unfolding situation. What we do know, though, is that authorities in Maine are investigating at least 2, possibly 3 different locations for shooting events, and they're looking for this man, as you can see there, holding a long gun, looks like a powerful weapon. Multiple people down. We don't yet know an exact number, but of course, Caitlin, we do know that gun violence is a common problem in America. This is, if this pans out into multiple people being injured, this is at least the 3rd mass shooting happening in America this month.
And Athena, I mean, obviously this is breaking. I know that you're listening to this police scanner. You're speaking to the authorities, trying to learn more about this. But what do we know so far about the multiple locations here? That seems to be a key part of this.
It's unclear. They're putting out a picture of just one person. We do not know if that means that they believe there is only one shooter, but certainly they have a picture of a shooter. The first 2 locations that were reported, one was the Spare Time Recreation, that is a bowling alley, recreation games area. The other is a bar and grill, and then the 3rd, a Walmart distribution center. They're not right around the corner from each other. They appear to be near each other, but we still don't know if this person may have been working with other people. We don't know where this person is, of course, right now, and that is why authorities, both the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office, Maine State Police, telling residents in these 2 towns, Lewiston and Auburn, to shelter in place. We also heard that the schools are on lockdown. We understand there are events happening at area schools tonight as well. And we know that the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, has put out a statement saying that she's monitoring this situation. So still unfolding. This has been going on now for, it looks like about 2 hours, that 2 hours ago that these incidents began, and still a very, very active situation as authorities search for this person who is still on the loose. At least one person.
Yeah.
The shooter is still on the loose. Kayla.
Athena, we're going to let you continue to talk to your sources, speak to the authorities about the details that they're learning of this. You stand by. I also want to bring in CNN's Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller is here. First, John, we know this suspect is still at large. Can you tell what kind of weapon that is he has in this photo that has been released? I mean, what questions do you have about what not only what that is, but what he could be doing right now, given he's apparently not been captured yet?
So that's an AR-15 style rifle. It appears he has a telescopic sight mounted on top of it, which he seems to be looking over. Some of those sights come with a laser optic where you can see a red dot on the sight, so you can actually look from a distance. Wherever you see the dot is where the bullet is going to land. That's kind of very common in combat situations, police situations. But the brown hoodie, the blue tactical pants, you can see the pockets on the side are bulging out, which is likely he's carrying additional magazines. What we're getting right now is, and this comes from multiple law enforcement sources, is they believe they have 16 deceased and between 50 and 60 injured or shot. That is a stunning number. Now this is preliminary and these numbers are subject to change. We don't know from authorities up there if the 50 to 60
Wait, John, can you just say those numbers one more time? I just want to be really clear. Can you just repeat those one more time?
What we're getting from multiple sources is that they have 16 deceased. That's people who were shot and killed in this incident across those locations. And then between 50 and 60 who were injured. Now, of the 50 to 60, we don't know if all of them were wounded by gunfire or others may have been injured in the stampede to get out of the way or to leave the building or to flee. But these are extraordinarily significant numbers if they don't change.
And John, I would just want to update everyone as this is breaking news. This is happening in this moment as we're learning new details. What we have confirmed is that Central Maine Medical Center has said that they are responding to a mass casualty event right now. Obviously, we're learning more details, but they do say that they're coordinating with other hospitals in the area to take in patients. It seems to suggest that there would be a large number of people that they're taking in. But I think a key part of this, in addition to that response, is this person in this photo is still at large right now. I mean, what are they doing to trying to find him right now?
Well, what they're doing is what we're helping with right now, which is they gathered this video, they froze it to the best image they could get of the individual's face looking over the gun. They put it out to us and other media immediately. This is something that agencies have struggled with, but going to the crowd source, which is everybody watching who may have seen this individual today, may spot him tonight on the road or at a gas station or on the street, or may know him personally or from social media. That is the crowdsourcing that they are doing to try and get the public to contact them either directly or over social media to say, this is who this individual is, because that would allow them, A, to go look for him where they think he might be, B, alert people that who he is, and C, trace him to a vehicle, which, if he's acting alone, he had to travel by car between these three locations to make up the time between the incidents. If he's acting with someone else, that car could be highly relevant. So this is a very dynamic incident. As far as the injuries, that medical center, of course, is not built for that number of casualties to come in a trauma situation. They've been landing helicopters at various locations from the scene, medevac helicopters, and taking, after triaging victims, taking them to medical centers that are further out. So they're really using the maximum of the medical resources available in the state of Maine and New England by adding in the medevac factor. But as you pointed out, job one right now is figuring out who this individual is and where he is and getting him in custody.
Right, and I mean, I'm looking at these numbers, John, from your reporting on what you're learning from law enforcement sources about what's going on here. I mean, Maine is not a very populated, densely populated area, and to see these numbers, 16 people you are told are dead in these shootings. I mean, obviously they seem to have some sort of connection. Have your sources said anything about the difference in what these locations are, if there's any kind of through line in them?
No, and you've got one is a bar, one is a bowling alley, another is a distribution center, and that is still something we're trying to confirm and get more information on. But you had victims that also scattered beyond these locations, victims that ran into the woods, people who were found at other locations where they fled to. So they're trying to sort out which victims came from what shooting location still.
And so what kind of response do you believe they're trying to marshal right now, given, I mean, this is a pretty remote area, and you're hearing 50 to 60 people. I mean, they're simultaneously dealing with that medical aspect, but also still trying to locate the shooter.
So that's right. And what you've got is the Lewiston Police Department, which is the first responder here, but the Maine State Police is basically bringing in all of its resources. The Maine State Intelligence Fusion Center is calling in all of its people to help backtracking through information and intelligence and whatever else they can do to assist. And you also have the mutual aid from all the other towns and ambulance services being brought to bear here.
Right, so they're going to need multiple resources from different areas. John, I know you're speaking to your law enforcement sources. I want you to stand by and let us know if you have an update on these numbers that you're hearing or the efforts to apprehend the person who's at large here. I also want to bring in CNN's Josh Campbell. Josh, as you are looking at this situation, what do you believe these law enforcement sources are doing right now, these law enforcement authorities right now, to try to locate this shooter?
Well, you have this manhunt, obviously, that's underway that's now including multiple agencies. This is obviously not a large metropolitan area, and so when the first 911 call comes in, it may take a small department amount of time to actually get there. And so I think that's why we see these at least two confirmed locations. You know, people wondering, well, why weren't officers able to stop this person? Sometimes that takes time. There's this mantra in law enforcement that action beats reaction. The suspect makes the first move, and then police are playing catch up, trying to locate this person. As you look at the distance between those two confirmed locations that we know, it's about a little over 4 miles. And so that was the distance that this person had to travel. We see that photo, obviously, that they're pushing out there to the public. If they, two things, if there's someone who knows who this individual is, they certainly want to hear from you, but also to members of the public. If you see this person, someone matching this description, they want you to pick up the phone immediately and call 911. I want to focus on, as we zoom in on that photo, this weaponry that we're seeing. You know, in so many of these mass shooting incidents, we see this same kind of high-powered assault-style rifle that's used, and particularly as you look at the number of victims that we've been reporting, much of this comes down to what is near the front of that weapon. That's the magazine that contains the ammunition that goes in to that high-powered assault-style rifle. If it's a large-capacity magazine, we're talking about upwards of 30 rounds. There are additional magazines that you can buy aftermarket that have much more firepower than that. The reason why that's important is because a suspect with that type of weaponry can fire multiple rounds in a short amount of time. They also don't have to reload as much as someone who might have a pistol. And so, you know, this is, again, very, very morbid to talk about, but you look at the victims here, the numbers that we're seeing, a lot of that comes down to how much firepower someone can expend in a short amount of time and then flee to the second location. Now, one thing that we do know is that everyone who was at the scene of both of those two confirmed incidents are now potential witnesses. Obviously, we know that the medical center, as you were reporting, Caitlin, has issued this mass casualty notice. They're taking in victims. They're coordinating with other hospitals in the area. But individuals who were there at these scenes who are not injured are key witnesses for police. They want to know, what did they see? Did anyone recognize this individual? You know, after these incidents, and sadly this has become rote by now with, you know, mass shooting after mass shooting in the United States, one thing that I look at, you know, as a former law enforcement officer is what are the characteristics of the location? This obviously, the evening time, you have a bar, you have a bowling alley, both places where you would have a large population potentially. And so, again, if the motivation is just to cause indiscriminate large, massive loss of life, that's where you would want to go. So police obviously sending out this shelter in place to other locations to lock those places down so this individual doesn't come in, and they certainly want people off the streets as they go this gridded search to try to find this person, Caitlin.
Yeah, Josh, and I just want to stay on the weapon for a moment because you're talking about the magazine that's on it, but also, and just let me take a step back here for a moment for people who are just tuning in. What we are talking about is a mass casualty event according to the Maine Medical Center. We believe there are multiple locations where there is an active shooter who has not been caught yet by the authorities. We are talking about this is happening in Maine, in the city of Lewiston. Right now, what we are hearing from CNN's John Miller is that 16 people have been killed in these shootings. Major questions still remain tonight. The suspect is still at large, and the sheriff's office has released this photo here that you can see of the suspected shooter holding this gun. And Josh, as you look at this, what John Miller was mentioning is that he can see a scope on this gun as well. I mean, what would that tell you about what this person's intentions were as they're clearly walking into a public place here?
Well, sadly, if you're in a public place where, that's densely populated, you wouldn't even need a scope like that. I mean, if you're just firing indiscriminately in a packed crowd. Now, we don't know if he's actually using that scope. It appears that he's looking over the top of it, but that tells you someone who had a type of weapon system there that had these additional accoutrements that essentially improved the accuracy of that shot, which is obviously very troubling in the hands of someone who is trying to kill people. One other aspect of that firearm, that obviously you have this manhunt that's underway, but the firearm itself is a key piece of intelligence here, because every shot that's fired, you have the bullet that comes out the front end of that rifle, but the shell casing that's left behind gets ejected out of the the weapon. The reason why that is so important is because we know agencies, for example, like the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, they have a special intelligence center that looks at those shell casings. Every firing pin that hits a shell casing, it's like a fingerprint. They're unique, and so they can run this through their database of known identifiers to try to figure out if they can identify where this weapon came from, who was the owner of this weapon. And so that is certainly something that would be happening behind the scenes, and we've seen that in many cases actually prove to be a key piece of intelligence for authorities in trying to identify the shooter. I would say also, we're showing the image right now. Obviously, we're often very hesitant to give publicity to a mass shooter. This is the incident where police want us to do exactly what we're doing and get that image out there, and we've seen that beneficial at times. I can tell you I was in Highland Park just about 2 years ago near Chicago, where there was this parade mass shooting. You had a suspect that was, July 4th, exactly, July 4th parade. You have people that were just out enjoying themselves. This individual came, formed what was the authorities referred to as a sniper's nest and was shooting down on that crowd. But what was so important, they quickly got the information out. They got the image of the vehicle, and a concerned citizen who saw that on the media saw this suspect, called police, and I was actually there when the arrest went down. The SWAT team descended on that person. They were able to take him into custody. And so if you're wondering why we're showing this image, it's not just to show someone who's there holding a weapon. This is the image that police want people in that area, and indeed around the country, who may know this individual. If you can recognize this person, they certainly want to hear from you as this manhunt continues, Kayla.
Yeah, and I think that is something that we're hearing. Residents are being asked to shelter in place. They're posting this on Twitter. They're saying it's an active shooter in progress. They're saying the city of Lewiston, all of Auburn and Lewiston are strongly urged to shelter in place, lock their doors, report suspicious individuals and activities to 911. They say most businesses in the area are closing as they are still trying to apprehend this person who is at large. I want to go to CNN's senior national security analyst, Juliette Kayyem. Juliette, when you think of how they are marshaling resources right now in the state of Maine, not only to deal with what this medical center says is a mass casualty event, 16 people we believe have been killed in this shooting, 50 to 60 people have been injured, though of course it's unclear how many of that is from the shooting and the aftermath of the chaos of this shooting. What does that look like right now?
Well, one is, as everyone's been saying, your number one priority is to just end the situation. So you have to capture the killer. The picture of him is part of an effort because to engage the community. Someone knows who he is. Someone knows where he lives. Someone knows who his girlfriend is. Who knows? But people are going to be able to identify him relatively soon. Shelter in place is because you have now an indiscriminate active shooter. There may be linkages between all these places that we're seeing. It certainly, from my perspective, looks like either he's targeted a neighborhood or this is truly indiscriminate. He just wants a whole bunch of people dead, and he has the weaponry to do it. He's able to do it. The third is on your marshaling of resources. As you've been saying, Maine is small. I'm looking at reports of helicopters medical helicopters being called in. You have what's called mutual aid. This is a community that will not have the resources to deal with the kind of numbers dead that we are seeing, let alone a massive manhunt. So they are calling in resources from all over the state, plus neighboring states. Everyone is moving there because they need that support. And then then you start to think about motive. What we know about the area is that it is Maine is not highly dense. It is for Maine an incredibly diverse community. This is, for those of us who know immigrant communities, this is where all the Somalians went. So you're going to look to whether there was a personal motive, a societal motive, or something else, just a randomness of wanting to kill horrifically a lot of people. And those are the different areas that this investigation will go. Everything is on the table because of the randomness of the locations. It's not like it's a school, a single school, or it's not like it's a single workplace. It's a lot of different places, which is not totally common. And in our mass shootings, people tend to go to places they're familiar with, or places that there'll be kids or that they know someone who works there. This one is a little bit different. So that's where we are right now, and in the middle of it.
And And given what you just said there, Juliet, I think is really important about having the ability to deal with something of this scale. I mean, 16 people being killed and 50 to 60 people being injured in a remote place in Maine is quite, it'd be a large event for any for mass casualty event for any city, a metropolitan area, much less an area like this. So how do they deal with this? What does that look like right now, about an hour?
Yeah, you're moving resources. Look, they don't even have the doctors to be able to deal with this. It's just simply because the numbers aren't going to match the number of people you have coming in. Let's say there are 17 dead, and that gets confirmed by law enforcement. You're going to have any number of people who are injured. You literally do not have the manpower and or woman power, doctor power in a lot of these places to be able to care for these patients. So you only have two options. You're bringing lots of people in, or you're moving the patients that you can to area hospitals. So this is the surge planning that we do in these high consequence events. And you are, these concentric circles. So all the area hospitals are open, and now you've got all main hospitals open. You've got every helicopter that you can imagine in the air now trying to move people from Lewiston to surrounding areas where they can find doctors, trauma surgeons, anything that they need. At the same time, you have a relatively small community that, that will not, that is changed completely after today, right? We're sort of we're in the midst of it right now. Tomorrow they wake up, there's going to be a before after for this community. You have family notification, you have family unification, you have people who do not know, did their kid put their phone down, or is their kid at the hospital? So you have a whole family unification and notification system going on too. We're so sorry, Ken. I mean, we're so good at this for all the wrong reasons. I mean, I know it sounds horrible, but unfortunately, there is a playbook that we have to follow, and that's what you're seeing now.
Yeah, it is unfortunately a playbook that people are all too familiar with. Obviously, we've seen this. John Miller is still with us. John, when it comes to this active shooter situation that we have unfolding here, where the sheriff's office is putting out this photo, they obviously want it to be shared with the public because they want people to be aware of who to look for. They also want to be able to try to identify this person, to learn more about him. I mean, what does that look like from that perspective when it comes to looking at Twitter, looking at Facebook, looking at Instagram, looking at the potential social media channels of this shooter, where we've seen in the past, sometimes active shooters have posted online in some potentially dark corner of the internet before they go and commit an act like this?
Well, that's true, Caitlin. I think in 85 to 90, depending on whose study you look at, 85 to 90% of active shooter incidents, they have what the profilers refer to as leakage, which is the event is preceded by the person either telling people what they're going to do and people don't believe it, or making vague comments like, in a week or two, nobody's going to ever forget my name, or, the people who crossed me are going to be sorry for what they did. And they find that very common. And since we have seen the spate of active shooter incidents and the body counts and the frequency continue to rise in this country, there has been a lot of urging on the part of law enforcement, school officials, college administrators to say, when you hear statements like that, even if you think, well, I'm not sure, you should really come forward and report those. And then, as you brought up, social media has become another factor where people will think of the Buffalo shooter. They will create a communique, a video, and they will have it timed to release when they are doing the shooting, or they will have someone else post it for them, either knowing or not knowing the contents, or they will have a written manifesto, as we saw in the El Paso shooting, or a video that is sent to a news network, as we saw in the Virginia Tech shooting.
Mm-hmm.
The offender characteristics that we see in these individuals usually tell us that it's a person who is failing socially, with their own network, with work, with school, often with family as well. That they feel increased isolation, There's a narcissist quality that, makes them blame all their problems on others and then decide that others, whether they're the exact people or just people in general, are going to pay for that. And that's how you end up in a place where you say, well, why that bar? And why this bowling alley? And why this other location? And why those people? And we are here again tonight, back in that conversation.
And John, when you look at this picture, I mean, you can see he's clearly, we don't know the age yet, obviously, but he's clearly a younger man, a white male, with this gun that he's obtained in Maine. I mean, the gun laws in Maine, I mean, what can you tell us about them?
Well, Maine is a state where you are able to own a long gun without a permit. I don't know if they have any assault weapon qualifiers as New York and some other states do, although I would consider that unlikely because it is a state full of hunters and woods and sportsmen. But I think what you're looking at is a gun that was developed for the U.S. military to be used in war, which had sales surge after 9/11, after the invasion of Iraq, and the protracted war in Afghanistan. It became a symbol, and a lot of people decided to buy it for home protection, buy it for hunting, buy it for target practice, but it's not built for that. It's built for maximum lethality. As Josh Campbell pointed out a few minutes ago, you've got that tactical sling that he has, which you can see coming down from the bottom of the gun. He's got his scope on top. He's got his 30-round magazines where you can, fire numerous rounds before changing magazines. It is a weapon of war, and it has become all too common in these incidents.
Well, and Josh Campbell, speaking of the fact that this weapon of war that John mentions there, I mean, what the authorities do know is that he is armed. I mean, this person is at large. I mean, we don't know that he definitely has it with him, but it looks pretty likely based on the photo that they've just released. How does that change this manhunt that we know is underway? As of 9:27, and I should note, what the city's emergency alert system went off just after 8 p.m., indicating that an active shooter was located in Lewiston, Maine. Here it is 9:30 p.m. nearly, and we do not have any word that they've apprehended this suspect yet. How does him being armed change this manhunt that's happening right now?
Well, he's certainly being considered armed and dangerous just based on the nature of the circumstances. I mean, there have been certain shooters, for example, here in Monterey Park, California. There was a mass shooting at a dance hall where a suspect went to a second location. He got into some kind of encounter and the weapon was left behind. Now, authorities obviously don't call that all clear, that the person doesn't have a gun. They can have multiple guns. But the point that you're making, we haven't heard from police that they have located a weapon. So they're certainly going to be treating this situation as though this individual is still armed. We've seen these incidents get resolved in a number of different ways. Sometimes the shooter ends up taking their own life. Sometimes they engage with law enforcement and there's a shootout. And sometimes they surrender. Of course, we just don't know exactly how this is going to come to resolution right now. But we do know law enforcement is fanning out around that agency. As John was mentioning a short time ago, all of these agencies bringing all their resources to bear in this state of mutual aid, providing support, providing manpower to try to find this individual, and essentially appealing to the public that if you see this person or you know who this person is, they want to hear from you. There is also at the scene of
Josh,
each crime what would be happening.
Can I just have you pause for one moment? I want you to finish this thought, but I want people to know what they're watching right now, and this is video that we have just obtained. You can see people running. They are running from the bowling alley that we believe is the site of one of these shootings here in Maine that we are covering at this moment. This breaking news coming in. There's this video of people sprinting from the bowling alley. You can see several people here. I mean, what does that tell you about how potentially crowded? I mean, it's a bowling alley on a Wednesday night. This is the scene of an active shooting, Josh.
No, exactly. And you see law enforcement approaching. You can see the reflection of the police deck lights there in that window, authorities arriving at the scene. They don't know at the time as they're making their approach that the suspect may be in and among the crowd. We see people there walking out with their hands up. We've seen that, sadly, in so many instances. Innocent people who are now, victimized and traumatized. But the first thing authorities want to ascertain is this friend or is this foe? And so they have to methodically go through this area and try to determine if the person is still there and if these people there are not injured, they're now witnesses. Authorities are going to want to ask them, what did you see? What did you hear? Did you recognize this individual? Where did this person go? Where was the last known location? To what direction, did he flee? All of that critical information that then gets broadcast out to other officers as they try to hone in on where this person is. There, a new image that was just released. We're now getting a profile image of this person. No new information there from a weaponry standpoint, other than the fact that authorities want the public to have various different angles of this person. If you see someone that you know has this type of clothing that resembles this person with those characteristics, it looks, someone down the, someone who parts their hair on the right that has all these characteristics. Anyone watching who might say, you know what, I know who this person is, authorities want you to call them right now because again, they're trying to backtrack here to try to figure out who this individual was. And then at each individual scene, the 2 confirmed scenes that we know, as the manhunt happens, there's also a robust police effort at each of those scenes. I've been part of these in law enforcement after these shooting incidents where you're literally going door to door. At this hour, very difficult because of the cover of darkness. If it's a business, then they might not be open, but if it's a residence, you're trying to make sure that there's not a threat in those areas if the person has secreted him in an area around that building. But you're also wanting to pull CCTV footage, any security footage, any Ring doorbell camera footage, and these, what they call intel teams will gather all that information to try to find, here's where we saw that person go. Here was a particular vehicle that was in both locations. Better still, if we're able to get a shot of a license plate on a vehicle that was in both locations. All that is very time and resource intensive work, but is happening behind the scenes. And that's why, again, John was mentioning just the flooding of law enforcement going into this area. It's not as simple as just, patrolling the streets and looking for this person. A lot of stuff happening right now behind the scenes in order to try to find out who this person is. And then, as we mentioned, the weapon itself. There could be key pieces of evidence ejected from that gun with these shell casings that certainly would be beneficial and try to identify the owner. If it was purchased legally, then you can get an identification. So a lot of work there, Caitlin.
Well, and Josh, just to recap here, what we are following is a breaking news situation, a shooting that has happened, we believe, at multiple locations, a bar and a bowling alley in Lewiston, Maine. What we are told as of right now, 9:32 p.m., this shooter is still at large. The authorities have released these photos to the public. They are trying to the public's help in locating this person. John Miller is reporting that 16 people have been killed. At least 50 to 60 more have been injured in this. And I do want to note President Biden, who is right now hosting a state dinner for the Prime Minister of Australia. We are being told by the White House that he has been briefed on this shooting, so the White House is monitoring this as well. Josh, given the fact that this suspect is still at large right now, how much harder is this search given it's nighttime right now?
No, that's the key factor. I mean, this person can easily hide under the cover of darkness. And, sadly, in instances where police may be near this person, it may not be until that individual actually opens fire or, provides some other sound or movement that allows authorities to vector into that individual that they're actually able to locate him. Now, we know that, for example, the U.S. Marshals, who are really good at tracking fugitives, would certainly be brought in, the bloodhounds and all the resources that they have. But in this initial emergent phase, we're talking about an area that is not near a metropolitan area. It takes time to get resources to that location. But by now, at this point, we're no doubt, seeing multiple agencies from across the state, perhaps neighboring states, because of the location, the proximity to the nation of Canada. There are no doubt border alerts that are going out. We've seen that in instances as well where you have a mass shooting that's near an international border, just to provide this very image that we're seeing to ensure that every one of those border guards has this picture and can scrutinize anyone who might be, trying to flee in that direction. But just right now, still too soon to figure out what is the end game for this individual. Did they, did they want this to end in their own death, or are they trying to flee? I'll tell you, you and I, Caitlin, were talking a moment ago about, for example, one of many mass shootings that you and I have covered, this shooting in Highland Park on July 4, 2 years ago. Authorities actually told us that the suspect in that case, after he fled the initial mass shooting, he went to another area near a park and was, looking for additional large gatherings of people, which is obviously so chilling. Now, he was fleeing police, so he didn't stop to conduct another attack, but authorities said that he certainly had the weaponry with him in that case if he wanted to. That is why we're seeing these shelter-in-place orders go out. Authorities don't want these large gatherings, certainly if there are bars, if there are restaurants, places where you might have a large gathering of people. They want those areas to either shelter, a place to lock down, or to disperse, because you don't want to provide another potential target for this individual. And then they also don't want people out on the streets as these police patrols are going through trying to find this person. They don't want, they want the innocents essentially off the street to let them do their work. But a lot of stuff happening right now behind the scenes. Until we get that all clear, you can only imagine that there will be continued resources coming in to backfill those already underway with this manhunt.
Yeah, and it has now been over 90 minutes since that first alert went out. Still no all clear yet. Still waiting on an update from the authorities there in Maine. We have former Washington, D.C. Police Chief and Philadelphia Police Commissioner Charles Ramsey here with me. I'm so glad you're here to offer your expertise on this. I mean, what would you be doing right now as they're trying to monitor this person who clearly has been at multiple locations, we believe, and the questions, of course, of whether or not they would be headed for another one right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a rapidly evolving situation right now. They do have a photo out, which is good. They'll get help from the public, hopefully. They're probably also scanning any video to see if they can locate a vehicle. This individual is apparently mobile. I'm assuming there's only one shooter. The distance between the first two locations would indicate that he had to be mobile. So they're looking at whatever video they can find to try to match him with a vehicle, put that out as well. The primary thing right now is to find this person. They capture or kill, one or the other. They got to get him and they got to neutralize him as quickly as possible. He's already done an awful lot of damage. If the numbers are anywhere near what is being reported, this is a major, major mass shooting that's just taken place.
Yeah, and the questions of and I should remind people what this video is now is something that we got from a resident that they captured on their phone. This is from Nicole Wen, ARL, who posted this. So she saw this large presence. We've just gotten in a photo here, Chief Ramsey, of a car that we do believe is connected to the shooter. It has just been posted online. Police are saying it's the suspect's car. You can see it's a small white SUV. I mean, what are the efforts right now to try to locate this car?
Well, if they've got a license tag, they'll be putting that out. If you drive on the interstates and you see the message boards and there's an Amber Alert or anything like that, they put that information out for the driving public that may not be aware of what's going on, to be on the lookout for that particular car. If they do have a license tag, obviously they've already run that tag and they're trying to locate that individual that way. If there's a residence or anything that they would need to be going to right now to try to locate this individual. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. You've got showcasings at all the different sites, so they're going ballistics checks to see if they can identify whether or not it's the same weapon being used at all the locations. More than likely, this is a case of an individual who's highly mobile, and he's going to various locations. He's probably scouted them out before to be able to move as quickly as he's been able to move.
Well, and can I ask you, I mean, we're looking at this photo. We don't know when this picture was taken, but Maine State Police have confirmed this is the suspect's car. What you can see here is the car is still on. The lights are still on. The door is still open. It's not clear where it's parked, but it's obviously a parking lot. I mean, what are they reading from that he left the car on while he potentially went into one of these locations?
Well, he's been mobile. I mean, he's been going from point A to point B. And so he's got the car running. I can't see it. I don't have return right now, but those are the kinds of things that would indicate that this individual is mobile. He wanted to hit this place, do as much damage as he could in a shorter period of time, and then move to the next location. This is a small jurisdiction. They're bringing in a lot of additional resources, but again, this is an average Wednesday night. I don't know what their deployment looked like before a department that size. Probably not that many cops, and so he's taking advantage of response times and all those kinds of things. But now they have the resources on the ground, and the hospitals have flown in doctors. They've taken victims to hospitals outside of town. So they're doing everything they need to do right now to try to get a handle on this situation to save as many lives as possible. And the cops right now are just trying to identify this guy and find him.
Yeah, and we know the FBI has also marshaled its resources. They are trying to help. A lot of questions about what this looks like. This is a breaking news situation, active shooter situation happening in Maine right now in the city of Lewiston. Multiple locations. We are told 16 people have been killed. At least 50 to 60 have been injured. We are monitoring this situation. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment.
They said you can't create an app without coding. We said, why not? Today, over 10 million businesses have created apps using AppyPie's no-code platform. So you start to wonder, can I do even more without code? Like, can I create fully customizable apps, automate workflow? The answer is yes, because we are leveraging the power of AI so you can achieve exponentially more. Create AI-powered apps without coding. Visit AppyPie now.
Meet Martha. Martha is 75 years old and has been on Medicare for 10 years now. But she's a bit cranky because she heard the 2024 Medicare Advantage plans are now available during the Medicare annual enrollment period. And she wants details.
I'm already on Medicare. Why should I call and check up on my Medicare plan?
Hi, Martha. Plans and benefits can change each and every year. That's why it's important to call to get your free 2024 Medicare benefits checkup.
I already have my Medicare card. I am not calling.
Martha, right now is the Medicare annual enrollment period. 2024 Medicare Advantage plans are now available, so everyone on Medicare can call to see if a Medicare Advantage plan may be better for you. You can even call to see if there are any changes to your current Medicare plan in the coming year.
They probably won't answer the phone.
Well, Martha, if you call 800-882-0987, a licensed insurance agent will speak with you and look up your plan options and see if there is a plan that will better fit your healthcare needs.
Why don't I get these automatically?
Martha, 2024 plans are now available, but you won't get a 2024 Medicare Advantage plan automatically.
I think I called before, so I'm not calling.
Martha, right now is the Medicare annual enrollment period. 2024 plans are now available, so now's the time to call. So everyone on Medicare should call now during the Medicare annual enrollment period and get your free Medicare benefits checkup today. Just call the toll-free number on your screen. It's free.
Free?
Yes, Martha. The call and no obligation Medicare benefits checkup is free. They can look up your plan options and let you know if you're eligible to enroll in a 2024 Medicare Advantage plan available in your zip code. Call now and we will see what plans may be best for you.
It's time for me to call and get my free, no obligation Medicare benefits review.
That's right, Martha. I should have just given you the toll-free number. It's on everyone's TV screen now. Call 800-882-0987. 800-882-0987.
What if there was a hearing aid that could keep up with you? This is Jabra Enhanced Select. It's a smart hearing solution that makes hearing aids more convenient and less expensive. It connects with your phone so you can stream calls and music. With Jabra Enhanced Select's premium package, better hearing doesn't have to start in a doctor's office. It starts with a free online hearing test you could take almost anywhere. So you can get your hearing aids custom programmed for you and delivered in days. From there, you can fine-tune your settings with your remote audiology team 7 days a week, so your hearing aids work when it matters most. In fact, more than 95% of Enhanced Select premium customers report hearing better with their friends, family, and colleagues. With Jabra Enhanced Select, you can get the same advanced hearing aid technology and professional care you expect from a clinic at a fraction of the cost. Try it risk-free for 100 days. Visit JabraEnhanced.com.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Eucora. Help maintain a healthy urinary tract with Eucora.
I had 8 UTIs in 1 year. This inspired my husband and I to start Eucora. It truly works miracles.
The peace of mind I've been looking for.
Try today at Eucora.com.
We are covering breaking news here this hour as a shooter remains at large tonight in Maine after there were multiple locations where a shooting happened. We are told 16 to 17 people at least are killed. More than 50 to 60 have been injured as we are monitoring this. Right now, the suspect is still at large tonight. The authorities have released photos of this suspect. They have also released photos of his car, the vehicle they believe that he is traveling in right now, asking the public for their help in trying to identify this person. He's driving a small white SUV. They released this photo just moments ago, as we also saw at these two locations. One is a restaurant and a bar. The other is a bowling alley. You can see people fleeing the bowling alley in this video that we obtained from a resident in the area. I want to go back to CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller, who's been doing reporting on this and confirmed what that latest death toll is, that we are still monitoring that. And John, when you look at Lewiston, Maine, it's about 36 miles north of Portland. It's the second largest city in the state of Maine, but it's not that densely populated. It only has fewer than 40,000 people who live there. How are the authorities there monitoring this right now and searching for this suspect, where it's been nearly 2 hours since this first alert went out, and still we have not received any word on whether or not he's been apprehended or what's the latest on that search for him?
Well, Caitlin, the development of having a photograph of a car believed to be connected to the suspect is another positive step. Your question, how are they dealing with this as a police department in a 40-some-odd thousand person city is, it's a unified command system. It's the incident command system where somebody becomes the incident commander. That could be a state police official. That could be the Lewiston chief of police as the person on the ground who owns this incident, and then everything falls under that. That means the other small towns that sent their people, they're under the command of the incident commander. The state police resources, the fusion center, they divide up into responsibilities, who's doing crime scene, who's doing witness interviews, who is gathering SWAT teams in case they have a location to hit or a sighting where they have an individual that needs to be stopped. Unfortunately, as a country, we have too much experience with this, and that would be how they pull this together.
Yeah, and when you look at what we heard that the FBI is now marshaling resources to also help, what role are they playing in this right now, John?
So the FBI brings a raft of resources to something like this. They can bring in behavioral science people, experts on active shooters. They can bring in ERT, the evidence recovery team, the evidence response team that can help process these crime scenes, and they can bring them in from multiple field offices. One really important thing they do is they can bring in victim witness specialists who can assist with family members, notifications, setting up a family information center where you have such a large pool of both people who are unfortunately deceased, and I think that number is going to go up because of the condition that some of those who were removed were in, as well as those who were injured. So the FBI is going to bring resources, including SWAT teams, including the FBI databases, including
John, tell me what you mean by that. You said you mentioned the condition of people who were removed, and what have you heard about that?
When you have a multiple person shooting, and very quickly you learn that 16 people are dead, and many others were rushed in different levels of injury and condition to area hospitals, some of them farther away. You have to calculate into that there is a high likelihood that you may lose other victims who can't be saved, and that's something that nobody wants to hear. But as I said when we first reported those numbers are expected to change. We haven't had an official update on that yet.
Well, as we wait for that update, I want to go back to CNN's Athena Jones. Athena, obviously we're looking at what is the distance of these two locations. It's a restaurant and a bowling alley. We've seen the video of people fleeing the bowling alley. We do know this suspect has a car because the authorities have just released the photo of this small white SUV that he seems to be purportedly driving, or at least used to get to those locations. How far apart do we know for these two locations?
Yes, Caitlin, we do know we know that the scanner traffic began just after 7 at that bowling alley, Spare Time Recreation. That is only about 10 minutes away from the bar and grill. That is the second location where police are investigating this shooting. Now, when it comes to that third location that the Sun Journal newspaper reported, the Walmart Distribution Center, that is just about 3 minutes away from the bar. So if you imagine this shooter, if they were acting alone, may have begun at the bowling alley in only 10 minutes time, at least according to the map, and that's, following the speed limit and that sort of thing. Very, very nearby, that person could have made it in a vehicle from the bowling alley to this bar and grill, and then from the bar and grill, it's only just a few more minutes, about 5 minutes, to that Walmart Distribution Center that we're still waiting to confirm as a third location, as reported by the Sun Journal. So it's lending giving us some information about what's possible and whether or not we still don't know if there is more than one shooter, and we know authorities are only talking about this one shooter, having released the picture of him and of his car. And it shows that because these locations are relatively nearby each other, it's certainly possible that one person could have carried these out.
Well, and John Miller, when you look at this photo that we have from the authorities, I mean, what does it tell you about what location? Can you glean anything from the background of which location this is that the shooter is in that we can see from this photo that has been given to us?
It's most likely the bowling alley, because you see he's right by the entrance where the fire extinguisher is, but also the lockers where people commonly, put their shoes and other things when they check in. So that seems to be where he started, and it would have been the first place that they would have been able to actually get video. We're expecting to see an updated photo from a different angle where his face is not obscured by the scope on the gun. Here it is, where you can see he has a mustache and a goatee and a beard, and it's brown hair, but that is probably the best look we have at his face right now, or the closest anyway.
And former FBI Deputy Director, Senior Law Enforcement Analyst Andrew McCabe is also here with us. Andrew, when you look at this photo that John was just talking about there, you can see a clear image here of the suspected shooter's face. What are authorities looking for? How long does it take them to figure out who this guy is, basically?
Yeah, Caitlin, it's not an exact science. There's some things you can do technically with facial recognition and against publicly available data sets. I'm sure they're taking advantage of that. If the photo's not quite clear enough, the success with that can be a little bit spotty. They are very much, I'm sure, relying on the crowdsourcing and public calling in and people who might recognize this person. So the more photos they could get publicly released, the better off they are on that score. But really the big development here is the photograph of the vehicle. Once you have a vehicle that's associated with this person, you can track that vehicle back through its registration, typically to the owner or the operator. If not this guy specifically, to someone who may own the car and know who he is or have loaned the car to him. So if they could put him in that car, which we presume they can since that's the photograph they're putting out, they should now have his identity. It's not surprising that they won't release that to the public very quickly, but once they have that, they can start to peel back things like his telephone records, his email accounts, his social media accounts, and all of those electronic facilities, as we refer to them, can ultimately help track this person to a location where he can be interdicted.
And why do they wait to release the name?
Well, it's the crowdsourcing has pluses and minuses, and to release the name right off the bat before you take any covert investigative steps in an effort to locate him without drawing the public to his current location is an effort to take him into custody safely. This is somebody who has allegedly just killed many, many people. You can understand that law enforcement is operating at absolute peak intensity right now. Every tactical officer who has to engage with him on an arrest, whether that's 5 minutes from now or 5 days from now, goes into that confrontation knowing that they are dealing with a killer who is either ready to die or understands he's about to go to jail for the rest of his life. So you cannot possibly overstate the intensity and the danger inherent in that confrontation.
And tell me what we've learned from Athena is that the first police scanner activity came from this bowling alley. And then, of course, we believe that he went to a restaurant. That's the second site of the shootings that we believe that have happened tonight. So we're still waiting to learn details. And we're still trying to confirm, but local news, a local outlet, the Sun Journal, is reporting about a Walmart distribution center. What do you try to glean from those three locations?
Yeah, so it's interesting how they're laid out. The bowling alley is the northernmost location. It's about 4 miles north of the bar, and the bar is only about 1.5 to 2 miles, depending on your route, from the Walmart distribution center to the south. So it certainly seems that, look, this guy has the jump on everybody at the bowling alley, right? No one is expecting this. There are no law enforcement reports, presumably, until he's in the midst of shooting or immediately after it. So he's really got a little bit of time to play with. But as the night wears on and his horrific acts start to catch up with him, he knows that he's got less and less time to be in this area. At some point, he likely has done this already, has to basically break from the Lewiston area and get out into the very rural, dark, kind of remote areas that are immediately around Lewiston. This area is particularly rural, so it's going to be a place where somebody knows the area and realizes they need to get out of town. They're going to know how to do that pretty effectively, pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes this so much more challenging. Andrew McCabe, stay with us because we are continuing to monitor this breaking news situation. Right now, still at large in the state of Maine, a suspected shooter. We know there are multiple locations. What we have learned is there are at least 16 people who have been killed, 50 to 60 more injured. The FBI is now involved, and President Biden has been briefed. We are continuing to monitor this situation. Much more on the breaking news right after this quick break.
I will never again lose to my brother, decided Issa, because I've switched to consumer cellular, and now I get the same coverage he's got for half the cost. I'm the one who wins. Birds, when freedom calls, we're here to answer.
Attention Medicare beneficiaries. This is an important message for everyone on Medicare. Attention everyone on Medicare. Today we are talking about 2024 Medicare Advantage plans. If you don't have a 2024 Medicare Advantage Part C plan, call now because there may be a Medicare Part C plan with additional benefits available in your zip code. Right now is the Medicare annual enrollment period. You can call now to see if there are any changes to your current Medicare plan in the upcoming year, or find out if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan with additional benefits. Everyone on Medicare is encouraged to call. Call now and a licensed insurance agent can look up your plan and see if there are any changes to your current plan in the upcoming year. Call now during the Medicare annual enrollment period. Part C plans can change every year. Don't wait. Call before the Medicare annual enrollment period ends on December 7th for your free, no obligation 2024 Medicare benefits review. Call 800-608-0087. 800-608-0087.
This couple spent 10 more minutes in bed thanks to Roman. With Roman, you can take care of erectile dysfunction conveniently and discreetly. Because sometimes everything else can wait. Get started at ro.co/Roman.
What you're seeing today is Dr. Renee Badrow completing a successful eye surgery, and the dedicated hours of training in virtual reality that helped make it happen, allowing her to practice surgical techniques to increase access to quality care through immersive environments. These are the ways surgeons with Fundamental VR and Orbis are using the metaverse today.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 10 on CNN.
From their structured settlements, annuities, and lottery winnings. Many have gotten lump sums of cash now and still continue to receive regular payments going forward. The bottom line is that it's your money, and it's your right to get the cash you need now. Call J.G. Wentworth at 877-CASH-NOW. Learn how to get the cash you need now from your structured settlement. That's 877-CASH-NOW, or visit jgwentworth.com. Representatives are available now.
Join Poppy and Phil on CNN This Morning, tomorrow at 6 Eastern.
This is CNN Breaking News.
I'm Abby Phillip, and we begin tonight with the breaking news out of Maine. Sources tell CNN that at least 16 people have been killed. Dozens more are believed to be injured after two mass shootings at two separate locations in Lewistown. That's about 35 miles north of Portland, and an urgent manhunt is underway right now. The suspect is not in custody. You see here, these are the pictures that were just released of this suspect armed at one of those businesses, and we are told a restaurant and a bowling alley are the two locations where these incidents occurred. Police are now urging all all businesses to lock down or close right now with the suspect at large. They're also urging people to remain in their homes. Let's start right away with CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller. John, this is a very much an ongoing active situation, it appears. What is the latest that you're hearing from your sources about what is happening with the manhunt, with the suspect potentially still at large?
Well, they've got a picture. They've crowdsourced that picture. People have called in with tips. We don't know if any of those tips right now are the right tip. They also have a picture of a car, so they have another lead. Now, they don't seem to have that car because the instructions they give are if anyone sees this car. When you look at that photo of the car, and maybe we can bring it up while we're talking, it seems to be stopped with the headlights on, the engine running, the door open. So there's some good possibility that this is captured from a surveillance video where he rolled up in the car, left the door open, ran in, opened fire, ran back out, got in the car. They don't give a license plate on the car, but it's not visible from the shot. And they say it may have a black bumper in the rear, which suggests they don't have that car in custody. If they did, they would at least know who the registered owner is. So really what they're relying on now is a couple of competing interests. One is they're telling everybody stay inside, don't go outside. But if you are outside and you see the individual in this picture or you see this car, call us immediately.
Yeah, and Athena, these incidents seem to have occurred at two places where there could have been quite a lot of people. Can you tell us more about these locations where this occurred?
Sure. The first, if you listen to scanner traffic, the first calls were coming in just after 7 p.m. at the bowling alley. That's the spare time recreation center where you can imagine people would have been there bowling, playing other games, gathering on a night like this. And then the second location that was reported is a bar and grill that's only about 10 minutes away from that bowling alley. So there's been a lot of talk about, that we now know the suspect's car that the police are looking for. Certainly 10 minutes away, it's relatively nearby. There was also a third location that a local newspaper reported, the Sun Journal, talking about a Walmart distribution center where there may have been additional shootings, and that is only about 3 minutes away from the bar. So clearly a very small area. And we're talking about not a huge population. Lewiston is only about 40 miles north of Portland. It only has about 36,000 people. Authorities have called on the folks in Lewiston as well as Auburn, which is about 2 miles away, so a neighboring town, to shelter in place as they look for this suspect in this mass casualty event. And again, at least the third mass shooting this month.
And John, as Athena points out, this is a small community. Maine is not a very densely populated state to begin with. From what I have gathered, Lewiston only has about 79 sworn officers in that police department. If you are looking at a situation in which you have a shooting suspect at large with some kind of long gun rifle, they don't know, it seems, where he is. What does that look like for a small...
It looks like they're going to need a lot of help, but they have it. Almost immediately after they understood the breadth of the situation, the Maine State Police began sending all of their resources, their helicopters, their available units, their investigators, their crime scene people, as well as the county sheriff, all of their resources, as well as the other towns that have their own police departments. So you have a unified command system under the incident command system where somebody is the incident commander, someone is in charge of crime scenes, someone is in charge of the hunt for this suspect, someone is in charge of interviewing witnesses and gathering that intelligence and feeding it out. This should be, by now, a couple of hours, 3 hours into this, a well-oiled machine where that's working, but it's all because of the mutual aid package that's been delivered. FBI is en route. ATF is en route. ATF will be running those shell casings through the NIBIN system, the National Integrated Ballistic Network, to see, do they match any other shootings? Do they match anything else that has a record of who owns that gun? They'll be looking at that car and then going back through traffic cameras and videos saying, do we have a shot of that car, that same car, where we can get a plate and bring that to a name? So a lot of wheels are turning that go beyond the local police department, who may be actually in charge of the operation. The state police may take it over. It's too early to say, but all the resources are there.
I want to go now to CNN security correspondent Josh Campbell. Josh, they are telling people in that area to stay at home, to lock their doors. What is happening right now on the ground in terms of how police are canvassing that area, both for information and also for the suspect?
Yeah, using all those resources that John just mentioned, you have this manhunt that's currently underway. They obviously don't want innocent people out and about, in the way of law enforcement, but it appears, if you just look at the locations where the suspect opened fire, these were both places where crowds would gather. You have a bar and you have a bowling alley, and so they certainly don't want any type of group that is congregating to continue doing so. If you are, they're asking for people to shelter in place, again, to not provide an additional possible point of fire for the suspect. But there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes right now that's being fed into those officers that are actually out there on the street that are looking. You know, after these incidents, authorities will go back and look at for security camera footage around the incident. Again, they're trying to establish a pattern of travel of this individual, you know, going to businesses if they're open at this hour, going into residences to figure out, you know, if you have a Ring doorbell camera, do they see this vehicle on that camera or the likeness of the suspect moving in a potential direction? That is a lot of work that happens behind the scenes. Of course, Abby, this is all happening while they're still in a tactical state. They don't know where this individual is. So the very notion of approaching a particular place, they have to be on guard because they don't know if that individual could have secreted himself somewhere around that incident. One thing is clear, this person certainly had the intention to cause indiscriminate mass killing. You just look at the number of victims at these incidents, and so certainly they have a lot of work ahead of them. Beyond that, you have these other resources that are being brought to bear. John mentioned the ATF, for example. You know, every crime scene where you have a gun that is fired, that high-powered assault-style rifle that we saw in that photo will eject a shell casing that they then can use to analyze to figure out if they can find the identity of the gun owner. Now, having that vehicle, if that vehicle is indeed registered to that individual, that obviously accelerates identification. And then the last part is the public itself, trying to crowdsource, getting that image out there that we've been showing. If for two reasons. First, if someone in and around that immediate area sees this individual, they certainly want you to call police. But second, if you know this person, you know, we've seen both the front vantage point of that individual. They also put out the side profile shot. Every detail down to the facial hair is potentially important, because if you know this person that has a beard like this individual, or this appears to be someone that you know or someone that you see, that is important from both a public safety standpoint and also an investigative standpoint. And then lastly, just to state the obvious, but this is certainly on the minds of officers that are out there, if this is happening at nighttime under the cover of darkness, making the work of law enforcement that much more difficult as they fan out trying to find this mass shooter, Abby.
Well, that's right, Josh. It's just after 10 o'clock on the East Coast, and I just want to remind folks, if you're just tuning in, we're following what is a mass casualty incident in Lewiston, Maine, where some 16 people are believed to be dead in two potential locations. Also dozens injured, 50 to 60 according to our sources. John, I want to come back to you on something that Josh Campbell was just talking about. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms is now responding to this incident. What does that mean for how this investigation goes forward?
It means that they're going to bring resources when it comes to firearms, the ability to trace ballistics, the ability to match ballistics. They're an unparalleled agency in that regard. And if the gun can be connected to another shooting, if there is something that can bring them to who that gun belonged to, ATF is pretty well positioned to do that. One of the things, you know, we talk about these locations, right? It's a bar. It's a bowling alley. You know, talking to Katie Schweit, former FBI agent, and literally the agent who was in on the behavioral science study of active shooters, but also wrote the book, How to End Mass Shootings in America. You know, she reminds me that most active shooters, not all of them, but the vast majority, when they choose a location, it's a place they know. A bowling alley they've been to that was familiar to them, a bar that they used to go to, a school that they attended. You know, when you think of the two frequent active shooters, and you think of what was the connection to that place, you'll remember the case in California where he went to the dance hall where he used to dance with his wife and opened fire on the crowd. That suggests, at least statistically, the likelihood that the individual is local the likelihood that, as you pointed out, it's not a sprawling metropolis. The quality of the pictures is good. The people who might know that face but also know a guy with that car, the ability to put that together, it seems like the kind of environment where you should be able to get that call from the crowdsourcing tonight and have a name to work with.
And I want to bring in now CNN senior law enforcement analyst Charles Ramsey. Mr. Ramsey, this is one of those incidents where yet again we have a mass shooter, but what makes this one a little bit different is that this is a relatively small town. Only about 40,000 people live in Lewiston. How does that change how this investigation goes forward? And if we're looking at trying to find a suspect, we're now several hours after when this incident reportedly began, and we do not believe as of right now that he is in custody. How much more difficult does this get in a less sparsely populated area?
Well, first of all, it is a small community, and I think, as John Miller had mentioned earlier, they're going to have an awful lot of help between the state police and federal resources that are there. They'll be using the incident command, so they'll have all the resources they need to make up for the fact that they just don't have it internally like you would in New York or Chicago or what have you. The more time that passes, obviously he's mobile. The key is to see whether or not they've got a license tag on that vehicle. The photographs are good enough that if you know this person, you can identify him and you could give a name. That might be what's going on right now. Is that they may have an ID, they may have an idea of who this individual is, and they're trying to track him down. But the person is mobile, and they could be anywhere now. They could be out of the area. This looks like it's something that was planned to me. You know, you asked earlier what makes it unusual. I mean, there's more than one location, possibly 3 locations. I mean, I don't know if we've confirmed a 3rd location or not, but
we have not confirmed a 3rd location. But to your point, sometimes in the early stages of these incidents, it's not entirely clear what kind of situation we're dealing with here. But at least 2 of them have been confirmed. Chief Ramsey, if you want to continue the point that you were making.
Well, the other point I was going to make is I want to go back to something that John had said earlier that I think is very important. I mean, right now we're hearing is possibly 16 fatalities, 50 or 60 people that could be injured. Not all could be gunshot wounds. You know, people panic, you get a stampede, you're going to have people getting injured that way as well. But the type of weapon that person has, that they're using, the wounds are absolutely devastating on the human body. And it's unfortunate, but many people just simply bleed out from their wounds, even if they're not struck initially in a vital organ. The damage done to the body is such that a person can very easily bleed out if not given immediate medical attention. And so the fact that they were, medevacing people out, I don't know what the surge capacity is for that particular hospital. Maybe not all that much. Again, we're talking about a small town, but the longer it takes people to get into a trauma center, the more likely it is that their lives are seriously at risk.
And that's an important point. We've been discussing that, unfortunately, all too many times. I want to just explain what you're seeing on the screen here. These are live pictures tonight outside of the scene of one of the places where this incident unfolded, the restaurant Shemengi's, which is a bar and grill restaurant, according to their website. This is a live picture of the police response that still remains there outside of this restaurant. I want everyone to just stand by for us for a few minutes. We are awaiting right now this first news conference on these shootings and the ongoing manhunt in this tragic, tragic night in the state of Maine. We'll be right back.
Experience the art of high-pressure brewed coffee with the L'Art Barista system. Enjoy richer, bolder flavors that satisfy your senses like never before. Inspired by French artistry and elevated by high pressure, it's a dramatically different coffee experience, complete with a kiss of velvet smooth crema.
I'm Cholet, and I lost 75 pounds with Golo. I went from a size 20 to a size 6. Before Golo, nothing seemed to work. I was exercising for over an hour every day. It was really discouraging. But Golo's so easy, the weight just falls off.
Let me be direct. You're watching football wrong. What do you call the guy in face paint that can't get the game? A clown.
What app was it again? No, just give me a second.
Amateurs.
Oh, sorry everybody.
DirecTV Sports Central gives you access to every game. So you never have to compromise on game day.
Was that necessary?
I was just illustrating a point.
Visit DirecTV.com for up to a $400 reward card.
Okay.
Which hotel? Somebody say which hotel? I'm great at this. Dance your fears in the spa-like bathroom. Or enjoy local craft beers with breathtaking views at the Cambria. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
What you're seeing today is Zoe Hoker creating more career opportunities for himself as a welder. And the time he invested in virtual training through Forge FX to make it happen. Addressing the shortage of skilled workers in today's industries by providing access to additional training and career growth. These are the ways skilled trade professionals at Tulsa Welding School are using the metaverse today.
This couple spent 10 more minutes in bed thanks to Roman. With Roman, you can take care of erectile dysfunction conveniently and discreetly. Because sometimes everything else can wait. Get started at ro.co/Roman.
A wide leaf filter? It's well designed, efficient. I appreciate that.
Leaf Filter's technology keeps debris out of your gutters for good. Guaranteed.
What more could you ask for?
Call 833-LEAF FILTER today or visit leaffilter.com.
The future. The way you see it is said to depend on where you sit. At X-Chair, we think it also gets down to how you sit, which is why our technology is light years ahead. X-Chair has done it again with our groundbreaking LMX technology, providing hours of infinite comfort no matter where in the world you're sitting. By synthesizing the universe's elements, bringing hot, cold, and touch into one extraordinary seating experience, our mission is to help you discover that every workday can happen with body and mind in an out-of-this-world place of comfort and productivity. X-Chair is charting a new course, helping workers everywhere find comfort as their work worlds zoom back and forth. Even though your work reality may continue to shift, we've got our eye on the future of work, so you can focus on the present. At X-Chair, we're gazing ahead, and from where we sit, the future still feels good. Visit xchair.com to find out how you can own an X-Chair for only $20 a month. xchair.com.
More now on our breaking news. At least 16 people have been killed tonight in Maine. Dozens more are injured after two mass shootings in Lewiston. One was at a restaurant and another was at a bowling alley. I want to go straight now to an official in the town, Lewiston City Councilor Robert McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, thank you for joining us. First of all, what is the latest that you are hearing about the status of the suspect and the people who might be injured or dead in this incident?
My understanding that they've got a tentative identification of the shooter at the bowling alley. Confirmed 22 dead. Many more injured. They've set up the National Guard Center as a triage center. The two hospitals have called in every off-duty staff member that they could to deal with this. We are a town of about 39,000. Our hospitals are not geared to handle this kind of shooting event, and they're doing the best we can. We are blessed with one of the best police departments in the state, and I'm sure they're doing everything possible to find this shooter and resolve this situation.
And sir, I heard you say 22 dead. We last reported 16. I just want to ask, is that coming from the police or from other law enforcement that it is now 22 dead?
That was confirmed by the city administrator.
And do you have a sense of how many are injured?
The reports online are 50 or 60 people injured.
So when it comes to how your hospitals are doing right now, are they able to even take in all of these patients? Have you had to send them elsewhere for treatment?
I'm not sure about that. All I know is I know they set up a triage center at the National Guard location to handle those that are not as critically injured. Life Flight, they've called in the other Life Flight helicopters from Bangor to fly out injured to other hospitals around the state. And there's a large police presence at the hospitals just in case. They've called in rescue vehicles from as far as 60, 70 miles away. It's quite a thing to go through.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to also say I'm so very sorry. This is a small town. I know that you probably know people who are affected by all of this. In that vein, do you know anything more about who some of these victims are or might be? Were they patrons of these businesses? Were they believed to have all been people who were inside?
Yes, they were believed to be inside. In fact, someone told me that there was a children's bowling event going on at the bowling alley, which is extremely tragic if that's the case. It's so surreal. You see it on the news and you say that's never going to happen here, and then it happens here, and it just blows your mind.
Again, I'm so very sorry for what is happening in your community.
I do want to take a second and our hearts and our prayers go out to everybody involved, and we're thinking of you, and the city is going to do whatever it takes to help anyone involved. And also, I wanted to say is that my house is located a half a mile from where this happened. And so it was a real scary event. I live on a dead-end street with woods behind me. We locked all the doors. We grabbed the guns, and we're just waiting to hear that they catch the individual or individuals that did this.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the area where these two businesses are? You just said it's very close to your house. Give us a sense of what's there, what's around there. What does it look like?
The bowling alley is located, it's on more of the outskirts of the city. It's in a business park, so most of the area was closed. There were two open restaurants that are right next door. A lot of patrons from the bowling alley ran there for safe haven and locked down. Thank God no one there was attacked. The other bar that was attacked is way across town. It's probably 3 or 4 miles away. It's on the outskirts, on the other end of the city. And there's also reports that nearby Schmenge's, where the other bar, that the Walmart distribution center was also, the doors were shot out at the Walmart distribution center.
And Mr. McCarthy, you were talking about the process of trying to identify a suspect. Do you have any more information from what you've been told by other officials about what kinds of clues they are following as they try to find this suspect?
They have a picture of his vehicle, the vehicle they believe he was in. It has some unique characteristics as far as it's white or silver Subaru. There's a picture of it right there. The front bumper is black. I'm told they have the plate number. So the individual, they're looking for him hard.
Again, Robert McCarthy, thank you so much for joining us. We are so very sorry for what is unfolding tonight. We hope that you and everyone close to you continues to stay safe tonight, and we will be in touch as this unfolds. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Take care.
I want to come back in the studio to John Miller to just unpack what we just heard there from the city councilor. These are two locations that are not that close to one another. They seem to be quite different. It doesn't seem like this could have been accidental, that these were two locations that just, as far apart as they were, happened to be the sites of these shootings.
I mean, statistically, it's probably not random. Typically, you know, in our active shooter scenarios, they usually go to places familiar to them. These are places that people would frequent. You know, a bowling alley, if you're a bowler, you know, you're going to be there more than once. A bar, most people have, you know, a regular bar that they like to go to. I think that may be helpful in this case in that the witnesses they have there may actually know this individual from either one of those locations or both. But, you know, I think they've gone beyond that. By putting that picture out, they're really engaging not only where this person lives today, let's say he's local, which is likely, but where he lived before, where he may have just moved from. It was very dynamic of them to get those images and not hand-wring about whether to put them out while we try other ways to identify him. Let everybody know, and let him know that everybody knows.
Yeah, and this man's face, as you can see there, very clearly showing in that image, not obscured really in any way, but putting out a clear picture for the world to see and potentially identify. John Miller and Athena Jones, stand by for us. Again, we are awaiting a news conference in this incident. We'll bring it to you as soon as it happens. We'll be right back.
Nothing can prepare you for this kind of brutality.
None of us wanted this to happen.
They took babies after they killed their parents. It's something you can't imagine.
There's still bombardment ongoing inside Gaza.
Humanitarian conditions there grow more dire. Are you hopeful still that Hezbollah will stay out of this war?
I'm Sarah Seidner in Tel Aviv with CNN's breaking news coverage of Israel at war.
Get loose now. Stay 2 nights and get 5,000 bonus points. Book direct at bestwestern.com.
Realtor.com's Real View maps show you precise wildfire, flood, and noise ratings on every home listing.
Don't all apps do that?
Not really. Trust the #1 app real estate professionals trust. Download the Realtor.com app today.
This is a keepsake frame. This is actually a photo from my wedding. I'm Adam Weiss, founder and CEO of Keepsake, the mobile app that makes it easy to have your photos printed, framed, and shipped to your doorstep. You just choose a photo that you love, you can preview it in over 100 frames, and in a couple of days, you're going to receive your photo in a beautiful, handmade frame. So if you've got a special photo on your phone, install the free Keepsake app. We would love a chance to frame it for you.
They said you can't create an app without coding. We said, why not? Today, over 10 million businesses have created apps using AppyPie's no-code platform. So you start to wonder, can I do even more without code? Like, can I create fully customizable apps, automate workflow? The answer is yes, because we are leveraging the power of AI so you can achieve exponentially more. Create AI-powered apps without coding. Visit AppyPie now.
The Chase Ink Business Premier Card is made for people like Sam who make
Everyday products designed smarter.
Like a smart coffee grinder.
That orders fresh beans for you.
oh, genius. For more breakthroughs like that,
I need a breakthrough card.
like ours, with 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more.
Plus unlimited 2% cash back on all other purchases.
And with greater spending potential, Sam can keep making smart
A
ideas.
brilliant reality.
The Ink Business Premier Card from Chase for Business. Make more of what's yours.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 10 on CNN.
Stop! I'm a good zombie!
This October,
Trick or treat!
spirits come home to rest all month long.
This place is really haunted. What a weird mystery.
With Hollow Stream on Disney Plus.
We're gonna scare you. Boo.
Home is where the hunt is.
It's time.
In Vernon, we vibe on vitality, and we savor summer longer. Here we come alive on forest trails and play in colorful orchards that weave into rolling mountains. raise your glass to the apples on trees and savor summer a little bit longer. Now's the time to travel to BC. Fall is on in Vernon. Join Poppy and Phil on CNN This Morning, tomorrow at 6 Eastern.
And more on this breaking news, another tragic update here. The number is 22. 22 people have been killed in Lewiston, Maine, after two mass shooting incidents at a restaurant and another at a bar. The suspect is on the run at this hour. A city councilor just told me on the air here on CNN that the number of victims, according to the city administrator, it is that 22 number plus dozens others injured. We are awaiting this first news conference on the shooting and the manhunt that is underway. But first, I want to go to CNN medical analyst Dr. Jonathan Reiner on what we are seeing unfold here. Dr. Reiner, we have been here many times before with these incidents, shooting incidents with rifles, long guns. And in this case, though, we have a large number of victims going to a small number of hospitals. Our previous guest just told us there are two medical facilities. Currently, Central Maine Medical Center is the one that has told us that they are receiving patients. What is going on in those facilities right now as a result of an incident like this?
Well, Abby, any level 1 trauma center is equipped to handle a limited number of major trauma patients at any one time. It's important to understand that a trauma team has a large number of physicians and nurses and techs. It's composed of surgeons and ER docs and critical care docs and anesthesiologists, all of whom are important in the management of a single patient. At GW Hospital, where I work, when there is a trauma that arrives in the ER, 8 physicians, including residents and 3 nurses, converge on that patient. Now, in a mass trauma event like this, you have to pare the teams down into much smaller units. So what will happen is there'll be a call out to the medical staff in the hospital, and it will essentially be all hands on deck. But for a hospital that already perhaps has a busy emergency room, the ER is going to have to clear space. When I was a resident in New York in the early 1990s, an airliner crashed on Long Island, and there were dozens of survivors. And our hospital got 20 major trauma patients, and to manage those patients, we had to move all the patients out of the ER and put them in the cafeteria along with people assigned to take care of them, and then await this onslaught of patients with penetrating trauma, multiple broken bones, all kinds of unstable injuries. And that's what these hospitals in Maine are getting set to do. Maine only has, I think, 3 level 1 trauma centers. So if there are indeed over 50 people with penetrating gunshot wounds, then that will quickly overwhelm the ability of the hospitals in Maine to take these patients, and they'll have to start to look at transporting patients who can be transported to nearby states.
Yeah, and we did also hear that, according to that city councilor, that they are bringing in resources from parts of the state like Bangor, medevac resources to take some of these patients out. One of the other factors in the number, the dozens, 50 to 60 potentially, of injured, is that we don't know how many are gunshot injuries versus those who might have been injured in other ways, whether it's, broken glass or just simply being trampled by panicked patrons. When you do talk, though, about the gunshot injuries from these types of weapons, can you tell us a little bit more about how catastrophic those injuries are and how patients can be saved?
Well, the images that we've seen captured by video suggest that the gunman had a long weapon, and the caliber of that ammunition creates havoc inside the body, and it destroys tissue and creates an enormous amount of bleeding. In order to stabilize a patient who comes in with, let's say, a gunshot wound to the chest, a patient can require dozens of units of blood. And that's another thing that the hospitals in Maine who receive these patients are going to have to assess. What is the status of their blood bank? How much blood do they have on hand to resuscitate these patients? So the hospitals are going to have to gear up operating room staff, bring in as many teams as they can, as many anesthesiologists as they can, lab technicians, to man the labs at night. It's a, full-on effort to bring as much of the capabilities to bear to take care of these critically injured patients, and it's a massive undertaking.
A massive undertaking indeed. Dr. Reiner, please stand by for us. I want to zero in on this ongoing manhunt at this hour, 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time. We have Ed Davis with us, former Boston Police Commissioner. This suspect appears to still be at large. We have an image, a pretty clear image that was released very quickly, and an image of a vehicle. Take us behind the scenes of what is happening on the ground as they search for this individual.
Hi, Abby. Certainly. So they're looking for the vehicle primarily right now, and they'll have SWAT teams that are moving around in that vicinity and locking down all of the areas of egress. The main turnpike is very close there. I have a home in Maine. I was just in Lewiston a couple of weeks ago. It's a lovely little community, but limited roadways, so that's going to be a good thing for the search. The question is, does this guy go to ground in the area? Is he in the woods someplace and hiding out? Or is he in that car moving as quickly as he can out of the area of Lewiston? 2 miles, 2 hours south is Boston, 2 hours north, and you're close to the Canadian border. It all depends on what's in his mind. And the police are trying to read his mind right now and get as many people out on that roadway to try to find that vehicle. Once they locate the vehicle, and they will, there are cameras on the highways. They'll come up with the vehicle pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And once they do, they'll have focus for a search on the ground.
We're looking now at that picture of the vehicle as you were just describing it. When I'm sure you've seen this image, the door in this image is open. What does that tell you? What does this picture of this car, it looks white or perhaps silver, what does it tell you about what might be going on here?
Well, an educated guess is that vehicle pulled up either in front of the bowling alley or the bar, and he just rolled out of the vehicle with the door open, went in and did what he was planning on doing, and had that vehicle ready to move quickly when he came out. That's what that looks like to me. It's a guess, but it's an educated guess.
And the suspect, the picture of this suspect, it looks like this photo was taken from perhaps a security camera image right at the front, and he is completely unobscured in any way. Is there anything that you can read in from what you see in that picture of the suspect and potentially of the weapon that he is carrying to carry out this attack?
Well, that's a military-style assault rifle, and from the looks of it, he's had some training with that weapon. He knows how to handle it. He's got his hands in the right place. He's got the stock of the weapon stuck on his shoulder, and he's looking over the sights, which makes him a very lethal and probably somewhat experienced shooter. The type of person that is probably a police officer's worst nightmare to go up against.
A police officer's worst nightmare. Thank you so much for joining us on all of that detail. Everyone stand by for us. We are still awaiting this news conference. At least 22 people have been killed in 2 mass shooting locations in Maine. Just another tragic night for the United States here. We'll be right back.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper.
Sunday at 10 on CNN.
We need your help. Go online, call, or scan this code to support WWF's global conservation efforts by symbolically adopting an elephant for only $12 a month. It's just 40 cents a day to protect wildlife and their habitats. Do it in the next 5 minutes, and you'll get this free adoption kit with this plush keepsake.
Heaven forbid another mass shooting in the USA. A song by Paul Beckman, Paul the Rainbow Song. Also the new and first leader of humankind and the free world. Heaven forbid another mass shooting in the USA. Heaven forbid another mass shooting in the USA. Heaven forbid another mass shooting in America. Oh no, so many guns. Was it a random shooting? Was it pre-planned? Was it people from another country or was it locally grown terrorists? Well, hey, another mass shooting. Don't need any more of those. Another mass shooting in the USA, of course, where so many guns are prevalent, and therefore there's so many mass shootings. The likelihood of a child being killed is from a shooting. Hey. Gotta get rid of those guns now. Hey. Gotta get killing off the mind, yeah. Hey. Gotta do something about it. Whoa. At least I'm creating a song saying let's do away with guns. Let's do away with mass shootings. Let's do away with unnecessary death on the planet. Yes. Unnecessary deaths on the planet. Yes. Gotta do something about the situation. It's become epidemic. So many dead I hear on the news now. What was it, about 22 or 16? And plus many more injured. Oh no. At least 22 killed in mass shootings in Maine. Suspect still at large. Oh. Gotta put an end to mass shootings. Yeah. Want to put an end to mass shootings? Yeah.